Dynasty Gambit on the Going To Live Network. I am Devin Deal. You can find me at Devin Deal on Twitter. Joined as always by Brian at VandyGrad92. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Devin. Appreciate y'all having me back on. Sorry for my technical difficulties last week, but we're going to knock on some wood. But I'm really interested in seeing what kind of a running back matchup we'll have after the unfortunate injuries last weekend. So
right, this was primed to be one hell of a matchup for everybody. Seeing Javonte versus him there, so versus Taylor. So kind of sucks on that aspect, but we're going to get you through, give you some of our takes as far as dynasty implications as far as that goes. And then joining us as always again, top right-hand corner, Fantasy J77. Jay, how are you doing today?
Doing awesome, fellas. Doing awesome. I'm ready for a good Thursday night football game. We were talking off air. I don't know if it's going to be quite high scoring or if it's going to be low scoring, but I do think it's going to be a pretty close game. I know, looking at the slate, 3-4 weeks ago, we were all super excited about this Thursday night matchup, watching what could possibly be the number one, versus number two running back, or top, two top five running backs in the game right now. And we are getting neither one of them. One of my co-hosts last night, Shane Manila, says this is a trash can running back game right here. But I'm doing
a running back game for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's kind of been one thing. We'll just go ahead and get into it. Talking about this game here tonight is, I think a lot of us, we're pretty optimistic about both of these offenses going into the season. You got Jonathan Taylor, you had Michael Pittman. They drafted Alec Pierce on the Colts. But then on the flip side, you had Russell Wilson going to the Broncos, Sutton, Judy, Alberto, the running backs there. So, it seemed like, on paper, this was going to be a game where a lot of people had some dynasty assets going in this game. And now, you might maybe be starting both quarterbacks, depending on how deep your league is. Pittman's obviously going to be in there, the wide receivers from Broncos as well. But, the running back situation has been completely flipped on its head here with the injuries to Taylor and Javonte Williams. So, Brian, let's go with you here. I know you have some little tidbits you'd like to get to. So let's just talk about some of the injuries and what your impact and takeaway is from them.
Yeah, like you said, you definitely got long-term with Williams. He's out for the year. Taylor, I think, honestly, if this was a weekend game, he very well could have played this coming weekend. It doesn't look like anything major. So that's good for Taylor owners. I think in regards to the Denver side, MG3, Melvin Gordon is going to be your big person. I don't see as much from Mike Boone. And I'm really, really, really curious about the Colts side. Nyheim Hines will have definitely a PPR floor, but I'm kind of interested in seeing who's going to be the first and second down back for them.
All right, Jay, what about you? What's some takes you have on these injuries impacting tonight's game?
Yeah, I think, it's good in most of my leagues because I was not drafting Williams, but I was able to get a good bit of Melvin Gordon. Scared the hell out of me the last couple of weeks with his fumble issues. Scared me that, it honestly looked like he wasn't, he was going to be riding the pine there for, after that second fumble last week. And then, and then Williams goes and, tears an ACL, prayers up for him. Hopefully, fast recovery, all that kind of good stuff as well. But, and then the next thing it's Mike Boone coming in. It's not, to run the ball. So, and it wasn't Gordon, and it was like, so they really were going to sit him. But then you had the offensive coordinator come out. I think it was the offensive coordinator come out and say, no, Melvin Gordon is going to be the guy, and by all appearances, or, if you kind of read between the lines kind of thing, I feel like it's going to be like a 65-35 split with Boone. On that side of the on the Denver side. Going on the Colts side, I agree with Brian. I think if it was, a Sunday game, it sounds like that JT would have played. I think this is probably more precautionary that sitting him out, and it's probably a good thing because the last thing you want to do is a low ankle sprain or whatever, and then it turned into something else. On a short week, a la what we saw last week, unfortunately. So I think you're going to see a good bit of Nyheim Hines. But Frank Reich said there was going to be a lot of Nyheim Hines, to start the season anyway. This is just going to be the perfect opportunity to go, haha, see, I told you there was going to be. And, if we trust Frank Reich, that we're screwing up right there anyway because he's a head coach. But, I think, you're going to see like a Mo Alley Cox try to, break out a little bit. You're going to see some other players that we stashed, that we got late or that we, didn't have, the tight ends on both sides of the ball. I think it's going to be a little bit more pass heavy than it is going to be run heavy. And we really thought it was going to be more running the ball this week than anything.
Right. And, just you got to feel for, you don't have to feel for him, but you got to feel for some of the owners out there with the Jonathan Taylor, specifically in Dynasty, you're rolling into the season thinking you got the RB1 and he's been anything but. He had a great week 1 and then pretty subpar performances the last 3 weeks. And now you're without him for week 5. So, and then same with Javonte, it's another, Dobbins-esque type thing where you had this up-and-coming running back, tears his ACL pretty early on, and we've seen how long it's taken Dobbins to get back from that. Saquon, it took about a year for him to get back to form, but at least when he did it mid-season. I think it was week 4 of last season, and he was able to start the very next season, or 2 seasons ago, I should say. So he was able to start the next season. So you just never know if he's –
I don't think he was ever right. I think that was some of the issue last year, Saquon. But
right.
to back 1 second, with a JK, he had the ACL, MCL, I believe, but he also had a hamstring to go with,
right.
Whereas as of right now, anyway, all, Javonte has is ACL and LCL.
And LCL. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. LCL.
We don't know anything about the hamstring yet. We'll wait and see on that. So that could be a little bit sooner coming back. But again, it's still, October of 2023 that he's going to get back at probably the earliest.
Right. Yeah. So, tough to see that, especially from a dynasty aspect. These are 2 guys that, Jonathan Taylor's outlook is, obviously better. It's just a 1-week thing. He'll probably be back next week. But Javonte, you just feel for him very much, man, just because, he was poised to be that next big breakout star. And, we've seen all those glimpses of it. And it just, now this really puts a halt on that. So, but there was multiple injuries this whole week, not just involving this game. So, we had the very scary injury that happened to Tua, especially after how good he's been looking, and pretty much confirmed that he probably should not have been out there. That was a really scary hit. Anytime a player freezes up like that and they don't have control of their fingers or anything, you get that type of movement or type of look. It's not good. So, Jay, I know you have a couple tidbits you want to throw into here. Actually, some information from a doctor too. So, why don't you have at it?
So that when I was watching that game, I actually happened to be on a call with Garrett Price at the time, and the first thing I said was, "Oh my God, look at his fingers! Your fingers lock up like that because of a severe brain trauma."
Mm-hmm.
Which was just watching his fingers was crazy enough. But anyway, so Dr. and I'm going to screw his name up, but it's Bennett Amala, I believe. He's the one that actually discovered CTE and says that Tua has suffered permanent brain damage and believes that Tua should never take another snap in the NFL. His exact quote was this. This is exactly what he told TMZ. If you love your family, if you love your life, if you love your family, if you love your kids, if you have kids, it's time for you to gallantly walk away, go find something else to do. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that cannot be good. I don't know if he looked at the scans. I don't know if he looked at the MRIs or however they look at the concussion protocols or anything like that. But for a guy that discovered CTE to come out and say that was kind of shocking and it hurt. I'm not a huge Tua fan, but Tua didn't just have the concussion from the Sunday prior. He also previously had hip issues. He's not the biggest stout guy that's out there. But for somebody to come out there and say that you should never play the game that, he absolutely loves the game. You can actually see that, that they're saying you should never do that again. It's got to hurt. And, I think he truly needs to take a look at it and say, hey, we don't want to see somebody die on the field, of course. And so it was kind of heart wrenching when I read the article, and it was really shocking as well. So I hated that for Tua. I hope he's going to be good to go. Not on the field. I could care less about the field. It's about the person at that point.
Right. So we do have a comment here from Kyle, our good buddy. It says, man, I dodged a bullet. I tried to buy Javonte in the league by pivoting off of Najee Harris. Thankfully, the other manager declined, but ironically, I was trying to avoid the injury scare with Najee. So, yeah, definitely dodged a bullet there, especially this is Dynasty. I'm assuming it's probably a Dynasty league. But, yeah, that's he's got a long road ahead for there. But back to the Tua situation. Yeah, it was just, that was one of those things where, I hate when I see those on TV, especially when, they just continuously keep showing it. It was like, man, I know Amazon's kind of new to the whole, Thursday night football thing and broadcasting football games, but it was just a bad look to constantly be putting that in slow-mo and putting it up there. It felt like it was on for 5 minutes straight of them just, showing that with his fingers stretched out like that. So just a really bad look. I mean, hopefully he's going to bounce back. I think they're being cautious with him, but yeah, the whole NFL world's kind of been turned up its head. The doctor who actually cleared him 2 weeks ago has been let go by the NFLPA. So a lot of changes coming, and it seems like now they're pushing for, if you show any kind of, stumbling, any type of head trauma, like the telltale signs, that you're out of the game for good. You don't even come back in. Right now it's kind of up to the doctor and the coaches, but seems like that might be coming up for a change here soon.
Yeah, and if you saw the Bucks game Sunday night, Cameron Brate had a very similar to what Tua had on that Sunday. Very first, his first catch on the sideline there, and it really did. It looked like he hit his shoulder, and that's kind of what it looked like. That's kind of how the Bucks played it out. And come to find out during the halftime, they were like, oh, okay, well, that's when he started. That was in the first quarter, and it took that period of, 35-40 minutes for it to actually start showing itself. So, hopefully, again, not a quarterback, not a huge player on, either side of the ball, in my opinion, even though I am a Bucks fan, but still, you got to be cautious with that stuff, because if you're not, it's going to end up biting somebody in the ass sooner than later.
Right.
And the ironic thing is kind of the wide variety of ways that are treating concussions right now. Hunter Renfrow is out for 2 weeks and just came back to practice, I think, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Brate, thankfully, so far has missed the first 2 practices of the week. So with any luck, that continues on, and he won't play this week unless he's completely medically cleared. And that would, I would say right now, be a hot topic for him to sit out.
Yeah,
right.
I think the news came out that that he is trending to be sitting out. I don't think anybody's going to take the chance on that. So I think he's going to definitely be sitting out. But yeah.
Right. So, and it looks like we do have a little more context. Kyle's league, we're speculating with Dynasty, is a salary cap contract league, 1 quarterback PPR, big play game bonus. Ended up moving Najee in a 23-second and got back Breece Hall in a 24-3rd. I mean, I think you did great there. You got much younger, Breece Hall being 21 and Najee being 24 already. And, hasn't looked great this year. I think a lot of it, Ben was feeding him last year with those little dump offs, and he's already, I think, on pace for 50 less targets in the passing game. So probably not a bad thing there. And then we also do have a comment here from Christian Hoffman, who says, this is Hines' last chance to do anything before I banish him from every roster he's on. So I think a lot of people are kind of feeling that way. I think more people were expecting him to be a little more involved earlier on here in the season, which he has not been. While we're talking back about this game, let's hit on a couple more things here before we get into a lot of our other stock up, stock down type things. So as we said, it's Colts at Broncos. Brian, curious, who do you think is going to be the RB1 tonight for the Broncos?
Oh, it's not even close to me. It's got to be Melvin Gordon. Like before we were headed on air here. Well, I was talking about Mike Boone. He said 78. Now I'm not stuttering. 78 career carries over 5 years, I think it is. So a lot of people spent fab, and I hope for those that did, it goes well. But the coach has got to go with Mr. Familiar, and that's Melvin Gordon.
All right. Jay, what are your takes about the RB1 situation in tonight's game? I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but.
Yeah, I'm with him. As long as Melvin Gordon does not come out and fumble the ball on the very first play, I think it's going to be, like I said earlier, 65-35,
right.
60, somewhere in that range. But, if Melvin Gordon comes out and fumbles the ball on the very first play, the first time he touches the ball, this could be a 99-1 boom.
Right. Probably, honestly, at any point this game, I mean, with his fumbling history so far this season, if he fumbles even before halftime, anything like that, he might not come back off the bench. So he's got a lot riding on his opportunity here tonight. So now let's pivot over to the other side. So for the Colts, we're still kind of up in the air on that. Is Hines, do you think, going to get the majority of the shares here, or Dion Jackson? So who do you think, Jay, is going to be the beneficiary, if you will, of tonight's opening at the RB1 position on the Colts?
Well, I think it has to absolutely be Hines. I heard a thing earlier today. Philip Lindsay got up from the practice squad, and I can't remember exactly who I was listening to. It may have been Garrett Price on the Dynasty Nerds, but anyway, so on your practice squad, you could protect one player, and last week the Colts protected Philip Lindsay right after Javonte Williams went down. So instead of going and getting Philip Lindsay, they went and got Latavius Murray, who is inactive tonight, by the way. So Philip Lindsay now is now activated, or moved up to the active roster. I'm not quite sure if he's activated to play tonight or not, but he's been with the Colts for a couple weeks, so it's very possible that you could see a good bit of Philip Lindsay out of the backfield. And here's something else crazy that I heard today was Philip Lindsay has more 1,000-yard rushing seasons than Alvin Kamara, because Alvin Kamara still does not have one, and Philip Lindsay does have one. So something to keep in mind. He's been that back burner guy. When he was in Houston, then he went to Miami for a little bit. Now he's with the Colts, and nobody, you forget about this guy, but he was a good back at one point. I think he can be again. So he may be out of the backfield, and you may see Hines coming out of the slot a little bit more.
So do you think he's got potential for an RB2 type performance tonight?
Who, Lindsay?
No, Nyheim Hines.
Nyheim Hines. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially with the catching ability. I mean, because if he catches 6 passes and then goes for a touchdown, boom, and then throw in 10 rushes, for what, 30 yards, whatever. I don't care what the yardage is at that point. You get 10 rushes, a touchdown, you get, whatever, 6 catches, especially in a PPR. He's definitely going to be an RB2.
All right. Brian, what about you? What are your expectations, if you will, for Hines tonight and just the Colts backfield in general? Anyone that you would be starting or recommending starting tonight in this game?
Well, I mean, Hines is the only one that you can go with. I think he's a low-end RB2 flex type of play, but that's okay. I mean, in a lot of these dynasty leagues, we're starting several running backs and wide receivers. So, I mean, yeah, he's got value no matter what. But I'm going to go contrarian completely. Dion Jackson is your first and second down back. He's going to have 12 to 14 carries. Nyheim Hines will get his normal kind of ceiling. He's a lot like, to me, he's a lot like Chase Edmonds. He's got a ceiling in regards to rushes. So I don't see Hines getting more than maybe 6 or 8. But he's going to get he'll get catches out of the backfield to make him valuable enough to start him. So.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people recommending him for DFS tonight, actually, as well. So, a lot of people are putting him as the captain tonight, as far as some of the showdown you can do on like DraftKings and everything like that. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that does break down. But I kind of agree with you there. I think that Dion Jackson has a good chance to at least get a little more work than I think maybe what some people are anticipating currently at the moment. And it seems like Kyle actually agrees with you too. So he says, yeah, Brian, Dion Jackson time. So that looks like he's on board. So maybe not as contrarian as we think at the moment. So
let's hope not. It feels like Dion to me for sure. So
whoa, slow down.
I just wish I had some strobe lights behind me. That's all I can tell you right now.
So let's flip over again now to the Broncos. So as you know, it's been no stranger to everybody in the dynasty community, fantasy community in general here, that Russell Wilson has been struggling this year. A lot of us thought that he had a really good chance to cook, if you will. That's what everyone's been wanting for a long time, and still doesn't seem to have things figured out there. So Brian, just kind of curious here. What do you? Oh, Jay, I'm kind of curious on your take until Brian joins us back. So, Jay, what's your thoughts here on the Russell Wilson situation? Is tonight the night he finally gets things on track?
Well, I built this show sheet, and I really expected you to ask the question the way the question was written. Okay, the question is written.
I don't want to steal your take. That's so
find the
plagiarism.
That's right. it's all under the going for two times. Doesn't matter. It's all there. So yeah, can Russ find the oven? And I think tonight is going to be the night that you're going to see what possibly could be in that offense. I've said since the offseason when Russ signed that I didn't think this offense was going to be able to gel, this year and be the offense that we all expected, or it can be, because he does have a ton of weapons. Now, that being said, he doesn't have Javonte in the backfield. He's got Melvin Gordon. Can he use his legs a little bit more? We hope. He's got Judy. He's got Sutton. He's got, the tight ends with Albert O. So the Colts defense, I don't think as a whole is going to be able to stop him, throwing the ball. The only person that's going to be able to stop him is going to be Russ himself. That offensive line has to be able to hold up a little bit longer, give him the alleys to throw the ball, and let him use his legs to get outside the pocket to throw down the field. Judy in the slot, Sutton on the outside, Alberto running the seam, and then you throw Melvin Gordon in there on dump downs, draws, whatever. I honestly think that Russell can be what we thought he was going to be, or what we hoped he was going to be, going into this season.
We did see the last 2 weeks, Russ has, used a little bit more of his legs the last 2 weeks. So, week 1, he had 1 attempt. Week 2, he had 2. Then it jumped up to 6 and then 4 last week. So, he actually had a rushing touchdown last week. He was 4 for 29. So a pretty good clip there on the opportunities. So, that's a big aspect of his game that we all loved, when he was, QB, top 5 QB every year there with Seattle. He kind of shied away from that a little bit. He's always been a guy that's protected himself. So it'd be nice to see him, keep rolling out, keep making some of those plays, and, just make the defense be, scared that you're going to pull that out. So, Brian, what's your thoughts on Russell Wilson for tonight?
I think Russell will be somebody you can start probably in even one quarterback leagues. Start kind of as a low-end QB1, high-end QB2. I think he'll do fine. I'm looking kind of like last week where he used the threshold with 250 and 2. I think he'll be over that. I think he'll get 2 touchdowns, and over 250 yards. So I think he'll be fine. But in regards to what we expected at the beginning of the year, maybe our expectations may have been a little high, because I was looking at something interesting on Twitter. He came back from injury last year, and it seems like around week 10 or so, and his stats are almost identical for the first 4 games as they were for the last 7 or 8 games of last year, even though the change in offense to a better offense compared to what he was on last year. So I don't know.
Well, we keep saying that he went to a better offense, but did he really? I mean, let's be honest about it. Did he really? Other than the upgrade at running back with Javonte Williams, I mean, DK and Lockett. I mean, Sutton and Judy. Tight end wise, maybe, but I mean, look at what Everett's doing now. I don't know that he went to a better offense. I mean, he may have gone to a better scheme, but I mean, the offensive line I don't think is that great in Denver right now. It wasn't great in Seattle, and that's why he ended up injured. So the narrative that he went to a better offense, I don't know that that's true.
And then the other half of that being said is Hackett's really taken a lot of flack from his play calling so far in the season.
Definitely,
too, especially that really. I guess it was an opening weekend where he made a complete disaster of himself. So
yeah, he's had a couple run-ins so far, and then to where they had to, actually hire that secondary coach to actually, the game manager coach or whatever his actual title is. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but But yeah, not a good look from the coach there. But I think it was more of like on paper. You know, I think the Broncos offensive line was at least a better unit last year. So I think people, when they came in, you know, thought that was going to just be a big benefit there. But I agree with you. The weapons are pretty similar to what he had there available to him in Seattle. But I think the big difference was people thought a little bit more of the offensive line compared to right now. It's not looking as great. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully he gets his legs going again, make a couple more moves, and then he's going to maybe make me not look like an idiot, because I was talking to these guys before the show started that, you know, I thought he was a good candidate to finish as the QB1 overall, that, you know, he had the weapons there, he had the line, everything we just kind of been hitting on here. And so far I'm looking like a fool. So I don't like looking like a fool like that. So I really appreciate, Russ, you go out there, 500-yard passing game, make me look good, all right? So before we move on to our stock up, stock down, does anyone have just any notes in general we haven't hit on yet that we want to hit on about? Doesn't have to be about this game, but just dynasty aspects in general. We kind of covered some injuries. I know there's a handful of others, some people that are questionable, not yet ruled out, but, you know, anything like that. So let's just go ahead and, Jay, we'll start with you on this one. Anything else you want to hit on before we get into our stock up, stock down?
No, I'm ready to get into stock up, stock down. I got a few guys I want to talk about over there. I guess the big one is going to be welcome to Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett time.
Right.
You know, I think that's going to be a talking point. Maybe not over the next 2 weeks with the schedule they got coming up, but if Pittsburgh is going to stick with Kenny Pickett and let that wide receiving core, let, you know, the tight ends. And that's where I was going to say this earlier when Kyle was talking about the Najee thing, and you had made the comment, you know, Najee's 24, 25, whatever he is. Remember, it's just only his second year, but now he's getting what's going to be what we all think is going to be his future quarterback. And they're not going to do – they're going to lose more games than they're going to win the rest of the season. That's fine. Whatever. They get the chemistry down between Pickens. You know, you've got, Najee, you've got the Muth. I think that team, if Pickett is the guy, they build the chemistry of the rest of the year. Watch out in the next 3-4 years. You know, and
he didn't look bad when he came in. I mean, I know he threw 3 interceptions, but a lot of them, you know, were good passes. They just happened to be intercepted, you know, and it looked like he had some pretty good rapport there already with some of those guys, and I'm sure that's going to be some of the people we're going to mention here in stock up, stock down as well. But yeah, he definitely, I mean, he looked like the better quarterback. I mean, I'm a Bears fan. Trubisky looks just as he did even when he was on the Bears. So I don't really think there's any chance or any reason to keep sticking with him. He just is what he is at this point. It's not just, you know, one of the things that was, you know, being talked about this whole offseason was Nagy from the Bears, from the head coach, was the one that was holding him back. It just kind of seems to be, you know, he is what he is now. So, Brian, any more topics do you want to hit on? Any injuries, anything like that before we get into your little baby or your baby of a segment here that you came up with?
Yeah, just throwing out a couple more injuries to make sure people are on top of. Cordero Patterson went to IR.
Yep.
Lions are really struggling with DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think at this point in time, I would say it sounds like Swift's definitely going to be out, and Amon-Ra's missed the first 2 days of practice, so I think he's likely to be heading out unless he gets into practice tomorrow. So just a lot of things like that, important names, and the running back position just looks like I don't know, it's a complete crap show. So.
Yeah, we got, you know, Miles Sanders up in the top 5 right now of rushing yards on the season, and who saw that coming? You know what I mean? So all right. Well, before go ahead.
He must have seen it because that's why he said, "Don't put me on your fantasy team."
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, going back to what Brian was just saying about the Detroit Lions, I guess it really does. They don't need Swift. They don't need Amon-Ra. They've got a 50-burger out of the tight end position every week right now, right?
They need a defense is what they need.
Oh, yeah. There's a shootout for you.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, before we go ahead and get into stock up, stock down, and some listener questions, we have an ad read here. So, Underdog Fantasy. So, promo code GF2 gets you a deposit match up to $100. So, head on over to Underdog Fantasy, make a bet, use GF2 as your code, and instantly get a deposit match up to $100. So, I appreciate them being a sponsor of Going for Two. And with that being said, let's get into it. So, Jason, stock up.
Stock up time. I'm going with Josh Jacobs as my number one stock up. There was a narrative or a thought process in the beginning of the year that he just was not going to be the guy. They didn't re-sign, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. They drafted Zamir White, and then you go out there week 1 and he gets only 60% as a running back, only 60% of the snap share. Then week 2, he only had 70% of the snap share. Then it dropped back down again in week 3. Well, last week he showed up and showed up big. He said, "No, give me the damn ball." 89% snap share, over 140 yards rushing, 2 tutties, and said, "This is my backfield. I ain't going nowhere." So stock up Josh Jacobs.
I completely agree with that. He had as the second best performance as a pro. He just, I think the whole fantasy community in general, be waiting for this. They never utilized him in the passing game. They never really gave him the opportunity to have, 25 plus carries a game, anything like that. So it was really promising. And, we also had, Josh Daniels coming in. We see how the Patriots use their running backs. So there was some trepidation there. Then, the most curious thing was the Hall of Fame game. He's out there rushing the ball. You know what I mean? And that's never a good sign. So like you said, I think the NFL is going to be moving towards more of them just not extending these guys, just franchising them. You got 2 years to franchise them off their contracts. So I think that's kind of going to be for these elite guys. Unfortunately, that position, we've just seen how the NFL has been getting away from it, to where I don't think they're going to get the bigger contracts like they were. A lot of those have never panned out. So I think, we all read into it as, oh, they want to get rid of him. But honestly, I think it's more going to be, okay, they're just going to franchise him and keep him on the team that way. But like you said, stock up, definitely way up. Brian, so how about your stock up?
Well, this was more a stock up, not as much of a slam dunk, certainly, as Jay here. But my stock up is Brian Robinson. And my semi-stock down has got to be Antonio Gibson. Be interesting to see how it all pans out, to be honest. I'm not guaranteeing any kind of numbers for Brian Robinson right now that Josh Jacobs had last year, but it's pretty obvious that Washington simply does not want to stay with Gibson. He had less than 50% snap share last week. I think it was 46% or something. So they're really impressed with Brian Robinson. And being honest, in college, I didn't expect him to be this fast of a comer, but I don't know. On paper, it looks pretty good. And to come back from what he did in such a short period of time, that's the real stock up to me.
Hey, yeah, Brian, what do you think about that?
There was a reporter at Washington practice today.
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah.
So Brian Robinson was actually back at practice today, and he busted one up the middle from the way it sounds. I did not see it. But the way the reporter made it sound was he busted one up the middle and was full speed by the time he hit the linebacker. And Ron Rivera was standing back by where the safety would be, and he blew by Ron Rivera. And Ron was like, "Whoa!" And evidently the reporter was close enough. He was like, "Damn, that boy still got it."
That's pretty impressive, man. To go through what he's been through, and it hasn't been that long in order to be back and up and making moves like that. And yeah, I was really into the hype on Gibson. At least a lot of people were down on him in the preseason. I have a lot of exposure to Gibson, and luckily I have Robinson in some of the leagues where I have Gibson. But after he got the injury with being shot, I thought Gibson was still just going to come out, look still like he did last year and the year before, and kind of just keep him at bay. But it's been the total opposite. He has not looked good. They're not giving him the opportunities. Like you said, his snap share has gone down almost every single week so far in this season. So, yeah, Brian Robinson, I don't know if he's playing this weekend. I know he has a chance. I think they just opened the window to where he can actually finally return. But yeah, he's looking – it's going to be a stock up for sure, because I think when he does finally hit the field, they're going to give him every opportunity to take that job.
And any owners that are being offered Gibson, be a little leery of. I've got owners in my league trying to give me shares of Gibson, and I don't want them right now. They're penny stock to me. So.
All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and give my stock up here. So my stock up is Tyler Algier. So
Low
like we already,
hanging fruit, low hanging fruit,
right,
low hanging.
right, right. It's we already talked a little bit earlier about some of the injuries that have happened in the league. So Cordero Patterson on IR, minimum 4 weeks, he's out. So Algier stepped up a little bit last week and looked pretty good. He's kind of been a lot of people's fantasy darling, thinking they were gonna, maybe at some point in this year they were gonna turn over the reins to him. So he looked good. He does have some competition there. It's not just going to be, only his opportunity. But for a low hanging fruit stock up, Tyler Algier, a lot of people is on the waiver wires this week, and we're nabbing him up. So that's who I currently have as a stock up for this week, and see what he does. He has a real chance to lock down that role. And then maybe even when Patterson comes back, doesn't fully give him back the load that he had. So curious to think, Brian, what's your opinions on that one?
I definitely think he's got a chance to make some hay for the next 4 weeks. What's the guy's name? First name Huntley. That's the other potential opportunity there in Atlanta.
Caleb, is it Caleb Williams?
Caleb Huntley, I think.
Huntley.
Yeah.
Huntley, I know for sure. I'll be interested to see. Algier was really good catching passes out of the backfield in college. So in PPR league, I like his value even more than I do for those few that still play non-PPR. But no, I definitely.
Oh, looks like we might have lost Brian there. So, but yeah, just to piggyback off what he's saying, Caleb Huntley is going to be there. It's not determined what it's going to be. He had a good clip himself. He had 10 opportunities and he had 56 rushing yards. So, but from a dynasty aspect for Algier, I know a lot of people, it's kind of a third round, second round flyer they were trying to take on him. So, it could be the beginning of something for you here with that opportunity he's got. So, like Brian is back. So, Brian, if you want to, we're still talking about Huntley and Algier and everything like that. So I know you dropped off there for a sec, but feel free to pick up where you left off.
No, that's all I had. It'll be interesting to see where the carriers go. I can see Huntley getting, his share, but Algier long term is definitely the play. Caleb's just a kind of a short term guy.
Yeah, my only comment on this would be watch it this week playing him unless you absolutely have to, because he is going up against the Bucs.
Right.
And the Bucs are only like number 15 right now in the league against, rushing, against the rush. But look at who they've played first of all. And Atlanta hasn't much. So let's not throw Algiers to the fire right now, in my opinion.
Right.
You absolutely have to. If you've got somebody you can put in there, let's see what he's going to do this week. If he goes out there and gets 5-6 receptions, even if it's 5 yards, at least he's getting the targets. At least he's getting the volume. Then we can play him the following week. And I'm not sure who Atlanta's playing the following week, but that's what I'm looking at right now is who can I plug him in later, because I don't feel comfortable plugging him against Tampa.
Right. So I got their schedule up. So the next 2 weeks are pretty rough. Not going to lie. So he's got Tampa Bay this week, San Francisco 49ers the week after. So then it opens up to Cincinnati, Carolina, Chargers, back to Carolina, Chicago, Washington. So there's a pretty good little road there for some decent opportunities, decent games. But again, just keep with it. I would agree fully with what Jay said. I don't think I'd be starting them against Tampa Bay. Like I said, their defense still has a lot of great players on it. They haven't been playing up to their potential, but an Atlanta game, we all know how Tom Brady feels about Atlanta. He's going to try to put it on them. So I'd be a little cautious as well about starting Algier. So, but just, go ahead, Brian.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just finishing up. I was just going to say that Algier, overall stock up, but maybe not stock up into your actual lineup. So that's all I was going to say.
One thing I was thinking about, since we talked about the Bucs just now, I saw a stat on Twitter today. The overall easiest schedule for the remaining of the season is the Buccaneers. So an overall stock up for the Bucs, whether that be Brady, Godwin, Evans, maybe Rashad.
Oh, might have lost Brian again. Yep, sure did.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
But I see what he's saying there, and I agree with that 100%.
Right.
I mean, the Bucs do have the easiest coming up, and they're in the NFC South, so Atlanta and Carolina, they're going to see him 2 more times, between now and the end of the year. Saints are still going to see him again. So, I see where Brian's coming from there with, the easiest schedule. And that team is just going to get better and better and better on defense. So,
right. Ironically, the most difficult schedule are all in the same division. Every team in the AFC North except the Baltimore Ravens. So the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers were in the top 5 most difficult schedules. So found that kind of interesting.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give my first stock down. So my stock down is Carson Wentz. So, I mean, I know a lot of people, it's not like a lot of people are clamoring to have Carson Wentz on their team. But, he came out to start the season a lot better than I think even a lot of people were kind of expecting. The first 2 weeks, he had incredible numbers. He had 4 touchdowns week 1, 300-yard passing game, 3 touchdowns week 2, 300-yard passing game. And then things have changed the last 2 weeks. Granted, he was playing Philly and Dallas, which Dallas is leading the lead in sacks. Philly's defense is no slouch as well. But the last 2 weeks, 211 yards, no touchdowns. Last week against Dallas, 170 yards, touchdown, 2 interceptions. So things are not going as well there. As a McLaurin fantasy owner, terrible. He hasn't even looked his way. I thought that things were going to be way up for McLaurin. I guess you could even piggyback this into a stock down with McLaurin because he's just not even looking his way half the time. There was, I think 2 weeks ago, he had 3 catches until like the last quarter, and then he finally had a game that was like salvageable. But it's not looking good there. He's looking kind of back like the Carson Wentz of old. We know how he goes. He's a roller coaster. He's always going to look good. He's going to look bad. But as of right now, if you have any type of investment in it, I think you were feeling pretty good the first 2 weeks. Now, I wouldn't even have him in your starting lineup. So, Jay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to completely disagree with you.
Oh.
Yeah. They're playing Tennessee.
Hold on, I gotta turn Jay off real quick before
he needs my issues.
Yeah. Well, and this is probably gonna hit Brian pretty close to home too. But they're playing Tennessee. Tennessee has absolutely been horrid on defense,
right?
And so Jahan Dotson's not going to be there. But you still have Terry McLaurin. You still have Curtis Samuel. You still have.
He might not be there either. He's missed practice today too.
But then that just wheels up Logan Thomas.
Yeah, there you go.
Because Tennessee can in the middle of the field doesn't guard anybody. So right. Logan Thomas is just going to run that seam. And all Carson's got to do is get it close. But here, check this out. This is something I said last night about Carson Wentz and against Tennessee. And it's not Carson Wentz. It's more against Tennessee and their defense. They allowed Daniel Jones only 188 yards, but 2 TDs. In week 1. Josh Allen did Josh Allen things, only 317 yards, but 4 TDs. Derek Carr, 303, 2 TDs. Matt Ryan, the almighty, you'll see him tonight, the almighty Matt Ryan, the greatest quarterback. Oh, wait, no, that's not true. Matt Ryan with 356 yards, 2 TDs against this Tennessee Titans defense. I'm not out on Wentz this week. Sure. I mean, I get that for this specific week, but overall in general, I mean, I think it's not looking too good the last 2 weeks. I mean, if you got a favorable matchup like this week against Tennessee, obviously that's one thing. But as we've seen the last 2 weeks, when he has actual decent competition to go against on the defense, don't want to be firing him up. But I think it's exactly what you said. It's a roller coaster, and you just saw the down, and I think this is the week. So hey, let's ride the up.
Definitely. All right, Jay. Well, why don't you take it away with your stock down?
Oh, my stock down is this. We've talked about him a ton tonight, so I'm not going to stay too long on it. But it's Javonte Williams. Like we said earlier, I mean, prayers up to him. But you're talking about an injury that is at least 12 months. So you're not going to see him again until 2023, October of 2023. Again, 5 weeks into the season at that point. And we've seen, other ACLs, how, they've come back from and not been themselves for, 3-4 weeks or in Saquon's case, it was almost another year, with other injuries, of course, happening too. But you're trying to not to put so much pressure on that leg. You're babying it to a point where you're causing other injuries in other spots. So I think, definitely stock down for me with Javonte Williams. It sucks, really, really bad sucks, but it is what it is.
Right. All right, Brian, why don't you go ahead and give us your stock down, and then it looks like we got a couple questions here from some viewers, so I'll let you go ahead and do your stock down.
That sounds great. First of all, I'm going to break the tie on Wentz.
Yeah,
I'm going with Devin.
There we go, Brian.
Vegas sets totals for a reason, and I believe the Commanders are expected to score 18 points. That's okay, but I'm gonna side with Devin on that. But as for my stock down, Kyle, I think his last name is Pitts, but I've not seen him here lately. So
yeah, he's been down in the pits.
Yeah, exactly.
Low hanging fruit joke right there. There you go.
Time out. So 18 points for the Commanders. That's 3 Carson Wentz touchdowns, and they're missing all the extra points. So your stock down should be the kicker then, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I think the last guy, I think his name is Pitts, but heck, I don't know. The first 2 weeks, I believe he had 2 catches, if I'm not mistaken. Last week he had 1, and he's had 1 good game in week 3. And talking about injuries, he set out the first 2 practices with a hamstring injury. So I'm not feeling very good about Mr. Pitts, and I've got him in several leagues. So I'm definitely kind of stocked down with him.
Man, I'm in the same boat. He was my second round pick in the Scott Fish Bowl, just ready to go wheels up, and the most expensive league I'm in, it's a tight end premium league. Got him there too, and he's absolutely killing me. So yeah, it's not looking good either, because you don't like when the head coach, when people are asking what can you do to get him more involved, and the head coach says, I think he is involved. You know what I mean? It's not good when he's out there just blocking. You drafted this guy 4th overall, use him. You know what I mean? It's not a good look.
Yeah. So he's not. The guy on NBC Edge today said he's missing practice, but hasn't he already missed games? Of course he hasn't, but might as well have.
Yeah. Well, he's missed practice the last couple of weeks, and again, one of the I think it was Shane on Twitter said the other day, he thinks he's just protesting. Don't know if there's anything like that, but is he? He's just protesting. So. We'll see. I mean, I'm with you on that. Stock's definitely down on Pitts, though. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I was actually seeing a lot of more activity. This offseason, he's untouchable. Not getting traded, couldn't even make an offer for him. Now I've been seeing him involved in a lot of my dynasty leagues as, being involved in some kind of trades. People are just, fully panicking right now, which is understandable. One person I actually saw on Twitter, sorry, I don't remember who it was to give you credit, but they said, even if Pitts doesn't play, you're not losing out on anything, because you don't even know he's starting for you anyway half the time. So
yeah, but in a dynasty league, I mean, okay, he's not viable enough right now to start. You'd have to see a couple weeks of them actually getting him involved, right? So, but don't trade his ass.
Yeah,
trade him.
You know what he can be.
Exactly. He's still 21, 22. I mean, he's right there. That's one thing that in Dynasty in general, I see a lot of people in leagues I'm in panic way too soon.
Yes.
I feel like they think of it more as a redraft rather than it's actually Dynasty. You're going to have this guy for another 12 years on your team, So, I mean, yeah, to give him away right now, people just need to take the chill pill, relax, specifically in Dynasty. If you're in redraft, it's not looking good for the season right now. I mean, we'll never know. We'll see how they, maybe try to get him more involved. He's still running routes. But I mean, he's still involved, but it's just, I think Mariota, man, that's part of the issue there too. I mean, he's getting the ball to London pretty easily, but I can't remember the stat I saw earlier. I'm going to butcher it, but he has the second worst catchable target rate in the NFL right now is Kyle Pitts. So even the targets he is getting are just not very good passes. They're not really catchable balls. So hopefully, if the targets stay there, the passes get a little bit better. There's some brighter days ahead. But, yeah, just like Jay was saying, don't sell your top-tier dynasty aspects or dynasty prospects that are 21, 22 years old. I mean, you got to do what you got to do for Javonte. If you're, if you're a contender right now and you need to make a move, do what you got to do. It's an unfortunate situation, but we all know running backs' shelf life isn't long anyway. Adding on an injury, not great. But, yeah, anyone like Kyle Pitts is just not performing, doesn't have an injury really besides his little protest injury that he's got going on. Just don't give him away for free, guys. I've seen some bad trades. I've seen 2 specifically that had him involved, and it's bad.
I'd love to see some of those trades because that I can just imagine. I mean, he was going, in Dynasty, he was going for at least 2 first.
Mm-hmm.
People were giving 2 first plus, a tight end. Maybe not, a top 5, top 10 tight end, but they were given, like a up until this season anyway, like a Dallas Goedert or a Schultz or something like that, plus 2 first for Pitts.
Right.
Which okay, I can see it. I mean, we all knew that what was he? Top 3 tight end, top 4 tight end last year, and 1 touchdown. And that was with Matt Ryan, who everybody says has a noodle arm. So he wasn't going down the field, and he wasn't getting the end zone targets, or the red zone targets, but. Dude, don't sell it right now. And if you're not getting proper value for him, stop. Just put the computer down, put the phone away, stop.
So one of the trades I had seen for him, just to give a little insight, was Pickens and Pacheco for him straight up in a tight end premium league. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, man, like, yeah. So don't do that, fellow people, please. Just rein it in a little bit. Let's do better than that. So, yeah. So let's get into, looks like we got a question here. So Christian Hoffman says, what kind of price should Lance be going for in a Superflex Dynasty League with his injury and his uncertain future in the NFL? How does this price compare to Hurts, Cousins, Fields, etc.? So it's tough if you're trying to acquire him. Obviously, you're not going to be giving up, premium things that you would have been giving up even 2 months ago. The guys you have listed there, Hurts, Cousins, Fields, obviously compared to Hurts is probably the 3rd most expensive quarterback to try to acquire right now. At least probably a top 5 quarterback. So he's nowhere close to Hurts's value. Cousins, depending on the team, that might be a starting point. You could give him Cousins and a piece or something like that and maybe be able to get him if you're going rebuild, something like that. If you're looking more specific for what kind of pieces can you get? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you have let's all just, let's talk around what you're willing to give up here. I'm personally not going to give up that much. I mean, you're always going to start off low ball when there's an injury like this. But his injury, like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
Yeah, I think giving up if I had Fields, I'd give up Fields, straight up for him. That's about it. Now I would if I was looking at just giving draft capital, it would be a late. I would have to guarantee that was 111, 112 in a 12-man league, or 201, 202 in a 12-man league. I'm not giving up anything earlier than that because here's the thing. We still, with all the hype, we still don't know what this man is on the field.
Agreed.
He played, 2 games, a game and a half, whatever the hell it was. He was not on the field long enough for us to sit there and go, yeah, he's worth, I'm not giving up, the chance of getting a Bryce Young or the chance of getting a CJ Stroud to go get Lance. I'm not doing that, but if it's late, okay, I'll take the shot on him, but I'm not giving up a ton.
Brian, what do you think?
I totally agree with Jay. I wouldn't give up the farm on him. If I was the Lance owner, I would expect more than Fields. I mean, at least we know at this point in time what Fields is like. So I would almost want Fields and a piece, maybe a 2nd-round pick or something, because Lance is an unknown. And as an unknown, I prefer him still over Fields because Fields hasn't shown me anything. And I'm sorry to Devin, our Bears fan, but I'm not impressed so far.
No, I'm not impressed either. Trust me. But yeah,
Devin wants Allen Robinson back. He's like, yes, we can Allen Robinson. Oh, wait, no, we didn't do that either.
Oh, man. Apparently, I'm glad Allen Robinson's not there. Whatever the time he spent in Chicago apparently ruined him because he's not even getting targeted out there in L.A. But
the ghost formerly known as Allen Robinson is what that is.
That's low hanging, definitely stock down right there.
Yeah, and just the context around Lance. Jay had already kind of hit it on this a little bit as well. But he was a project when he came into the NFL. He wasn't this all world Division I quarterback, and he even coming out as a prospect. So you got to kind of take that in. I mean, the injury itself, we've seen similar stuff to like Dak. That's come back, where he's had to have a plate put in his leg, stuff like that. So, it's an easier one to bounce back from compared to the torn ligaments, which I think he had a couple ligaments in there, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't actually think that it was, anything torn. But yeah, it's just, I would completely agree with Jay. I'd take a flyer. If you're needing a quarterback, a late first, if you have one, that's a great starting point there. And, the problem is the Lance owners, they're not going to want to sell. But we were just talking about with Pitts, you're not going to want to give up on these guys when they haven't been proven yet, any of that. So it's a lot easier said than done. But I think we're all got a pretty good consensus here of what we'd be willing to start with.
But like you just said, we're talking about an injury that he's going to be gone for until what? The first is he even going to be playing game, week 1 next year?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where we're at? We're thinking he might make week 1?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll try to see if I can find the information, but yeah.
Yeah. So, but you're talking about somebody again that's out for the year, for the next 16, whatever weeks or 14 weeks or whatever we have left. So yeah, you're pressing as a contender. That's the only person that should be picking him up is going to be a contender. So it's got to be a late draft pick,
Right.
And okay, I'm with you, Brian. If I'm a contender and I have 2 solid quarterbacks, maybe even 3, and I'm willing to take that shot on Lance, okay, I'll ship if I have Fields. I'll ship Fields and my late second. But if I'm shipping you Fields, I'm not giving you my first.
Yeah, 100%. That's from what I'm reading here, it does say Lance underwent successful surgery. It says he will now begin his rehab in hopes of making a full recovery ahead of the start of next season. So sounds like he's on track. Whether that happens or not, we'll have to see. Looks like that's the same thing Kyle has seen here. It says from what I've heard, Lance should be expected to start week 1 next year. So he has an opportunity to. We'll have to see. We know how these things go. Injuries are tricky. There's always setbacks. And then he's also got another comment here.
We'll see what's going on. Draft time. What's going on around draft time? What the news is coming out with him on his injuries, setbacks, and that sort of thing. And then, if you're going to buy him now, if you're going to buy him, between now and the end of the season, you don't want to wait for that news to come. That hey, he's ahead of schedule. Because then the price is going to go up. So if you're going to buy him between now and then,
the closer it gets from this point to the start of next season, the harder it's going to be to get him. So. Or the easier it's going to be to get him right now. So the closer it gets to the start of next season, it's going to be harder, and harder. So if you're interested in him, you still believe in him, you want that guy on your team, by all means, right now is probably the cheapest you're ever going to be able to get him. So,
and one thing in his favor, compared to the other young quarterbacks like the Fields, the Wilsons, the Mac Jones, by him sitting out, he's not, he's still an unknown commodity, which you'd rather have compared to the other young quarterbacks that are actually playing, and you're thinking, why were these guys even valued where they were? So in some ways, he's actually benefiting from sitting out because in terms of his trade value, because I'd rather have him than the other young quarterbacks besides the Herberts and besides the Herberts of the world, and also Hurts. The value's pretty sad on that anyway.
Yeah, the only thing that's going to be a little bit of cause for concern, if I even can put it that way, is just Lance. He's already 2 years into the NFL now. It'll be his 3rd year next year. They have to make that decision on the 5th-year option at the beginning of year 4 now. So, the quarterbacks, they'll pretty much all get picked up. It's rare that they don't. Mitch Trubisky kind of was an exception to the rule there. I think Daniel Jones also maybe had his declined.
Yep.
So it's just, that window to impress is a lot shorter now. So, that is one thing. I mean, if you have the faith in him, you have the faith in him. But, the team could be exploring more options because they only really have a year and a half to really kind of make that decision on him. So just one thing to keep in mind. So, all right, guys. Well, we're about 15 minutes away from kickoff. So let's go ahead and just give a little wrap up here, and we can go ahead and give our thoughts for tonight's game as far as who's going to win, scores, things we're looking out for. I know we've already talked a decent amount about this, but Brian, what is your final score for tonight?
I've got the ugliest one on the board. I've seen the others. I'm actually going Broncos 17, and we'll go 13 for the Colts. The point spread's 3.5 Broncos, so I'm going to say they're covered, but just barely. And I don't really expect a very offensive minded game for sure.
Yeah, it seems like we're all kind of in that boat here, but Jay, what do you got for tonight? Final score?
Yeah, I took, of course, Denver. I think all of us did. Yeah, so I think I took Denver 24-17. Like Brian said, it's a 3-point favorite. Denver's a 3-point favorite. I think the over under is like 42 and a half, somewhere in that range. So I think we all went on the under. But I'm also taking, in the sense of I think it's going to be closer, than what most people think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a big blowout. It could possibly be. I think there's going to be a lot more offense between the 20s. I just don't think that they're going to get in the end zone. So
right.
You could see Judy and Sutton both have 100-yard games, and neither one of them get in the end zone. You know what I mean? You could obviously see that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You could see Judy, Sutton, Pittman, and Mo Alley Cox all have, combined, 360 yards, and none of them get in the end zone. And that's going to be absolutely horrible for fantasy. But it's great to watch on TV.
Right.
Most valuable player, Brandon McManus.
Yeah. So, did you give your final score, Jason?
24-17.
All right. So I'm pretty close. Similar mindset. We all took Denver. So I got 21 Denver, 13 Broncos. So an 8-point game going down there. I just don't think they're going to be able to cash in. So yeah, that's looks like all three of us got Denver on there. Pretty similar scores, and like Jay said, we're all on the under. So gonna be interesting. It's not not the high scoring affair or the highlight reel players involved, at least as what we compared to what we thought at the beginning of the season when this game was on the schedule. But still should be a good game. Hopefully we have some decent points out there tonight. So we got about 10 minutes to kick off, somewhere in there. So we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Like I said, every week, make sure if you got people starting, get them out of your flex, put them actually in a position, leave that flex open for you. So for everyone here, Dynasty Gambit, we are going to get out of here. So Jay, you can find him at FantasyJ77. You have anything else you want to let the people know where to find you? Articles coming out, shows you're going to be on, anything like that?
Now you'll find me right here every Thursday night, Dynasty Gambit. You can find me over on the Twitter box at FantasyJ77. DM your questions. I do the show sheet here, so I'll put your questions in. You can also jump on, whatever. You'll find me on Wednesday nights over on I can't even speak right now. I'm looking at the game, trying to see what's going on. You can find me over there, Fantasy Intervention on Wednesday nights. We start at 8 o'clock with Shane Miller. We got Jacob Sanderson, and we have Chase Vernon over there on Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock. Like I said, Fantasy Intervention. And then you can find me in the Going for Two Discord. I've stepped back from the Discord a little bit. I need to get my ass back in there, but I'll get back in there this week. So, but you can DM me anywhere in there. You can DM me on Facebook or on Twitter there, and I will definitely try to get back to you, get your questions onto these show sheets and enjoy it. Let's go.
Definitely. And thanks, Kyle. It's a great episode, guys, as well as Christian Hoffman. And thank you for answering my questions, gang. See you next week. We appreciate you tuning in. Anytime you got questions, send them over. As Jay said, he'll put them on our sheet. Even if you have them live like you did tonight, we'll get them answered for you. So, Brian, how about you? Anything, any articles coming out, any shows you're going to be on coming up, all that good stuff? Go ahead and let the people know where to find you.
I'm not writing much this year, but I'm very excited about a DFS pod that's dropping tomorrow night. We'll be doing it on StreamYard. It's going to be at 8 Eastern. It's called DFS Deep Dive, and it'll be for fantasy sake. And I will be joining a fellow going for two persons. So I'm really excited about that as well. So, like I said, that's tomorrow night. You can find me at Vandegrad92, and I'll be retweeting that. So I'm excited for sure about that one.
That was a little tease.
Yeah.
Little
mystery. Mystery.
Yeah, definitely keep a little mystery going on.
Oh, got to tune in to find out.
I think I know who it is.
All right, and then you can find me at Devin Deal on Twitter. Usually, I'm going through my Bears roller coaster of emotions. So, if you want to see a grown man melt down in real time, go ahead and give me a follow. Follow me there. Same with Jay. If you have any questions, anything like that, feel free to send them to me. Definitely happy to help out. Any questions for the show, feel free to send them over to me. I'll make sure they get onto the show sheet as well. So for everyone here, Brian, Jay, he's got his finger up. He's got one more thing to say.
One more thing. Don't forget the Going for Two Discord. It is free. Come talk to us. Come holler at us. Jeff would be super pissed if we didn't say that it was free.
100% free. So there's no reason not to do it. Get on there. We'll all tweet a link out. I think that's pretty easy if you don't know where to find it. So thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the questions. So we will see you next Thursday right here on the Dynasty Gambit. Have a good one.